Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the second MCU television series to hit Disney Plus and to enter the MCU. This one isn't really as experimental as WandaVision's storytelling was. It's a little bit more straightforward, that political kind of intrigue that you would get out of the Winter Soldier. And this show takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame, obviously. This is when Sam Wilson got the shield from Cap, but unfortunately he didn't feel right for the mantle. He didn't think anyone could replace him, so he puts it in a museum. Unfortunately, he didn't know that the government, instead of putting it actually in a museum, was going to take it and give it to another white blonde guy named John Walker, so oof. At the same time, there's this group called the Flag Smashers that are running amok and causing problems, so Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes have to team up and get over their frenemy kind of rivalry status and go stop them, and while they're doing so, of course, they're going to bump into the new Captain America, John Walker. Back when they were first announcing the television shows, this was the one I was the most excited for because it's the one that made the most sense to me. Back then, I didn't know what they were doing with Loki or WandaVision, so I was like, well, what's the point of any of these shows, blah. And then, of course, obviously, the trailer, I think I mentioned this in the WandaVision reviews, trailers came out and I was like, oh no, I'm way more excited for these two. But I was still really excited for this because I am a big fan of what the Russo brothers did with the Winter Soldier and giving it a little bit more of a espionage thriller vibe. And I was really excited to maybe see a bit more grounded action with an MCU project once again. And I'm very happy to report that Malcolm Spellman, who is the head writer and like a lead producer on this show, did a really great job with the narrative of this because he puts in a lot that kind of pushes the boundaries of what the MCU projects usually talk about. Obviously, it's not like experimentally done like WandaVision for the most part as far as storytelling. I mean, as far as like the subject matter goes, they push it to a degree that most MCU projects kind of don't do, which is exciting to see. Like, instead of just having like a basic plot of like there's a bad guy or maybe there's a bad guy in the government, time to go stop him, and the characters are gonna have some quips and some character growth. Woohoo. Instead, they actually work in a lot of themes that make a lot of the conflicts in this a little bit more complicated. Like, there's themes of like systemic racism, race inequality, a government with a lot of power not giving it to those that are needy or in need desperately, trying to obtain a status quo that's out of date. Like, there's a lot that they put into this show that makes it all the more fascinating because it's real world kind of issues incorporated into a larger than life Avengers reality, which I think the MCU has always done a good job of making sure the heroes are grounded, that you relate to a lot of them, and doing stuff like this also. Like, in the midst of all this other stuff going on, there's these real world moments put in to kind of ground you, and you can continue to relate or empathize with these characters as they go through it. I think is really great work. I think Malcolm Spellman did a really great job for the majority of this narrative. I'm going to warn you right off the bat, there will be some spoilers in this. I know it's been like a week since the finale, so if you have not watched all of the show yet, then I'm going to talk about some spoiler stuff, so that was your warning. Here it goes. One of my favorite things that paid off in the end was a subplot with Isaiah Bradley, played by Carl Lumbly, who played Dick Halloran in the Dr. Sleep movie, so it was great to see him again. I thought he did a really great job in that movie, so it's good to see him in another project. And you really feel his anguish, his hatred, his depression towards how he was treated back then. He was somebody who was tested on against his will to be a super soldier, but his name didn't go in the history books like Captain America. He didn't get a suit or a vibranium shield. Instead, he was put in prison for something that even Captain America did and was like applauded for. Instead, he was put in prison and locked up. History tried to erase his name. Seeing Sam Wilson learn about that and having that kind of affect his character is obviously great, but by the end of the show, when Isaiah Bradley goes to that museum and he goes into that section of the museum where there's a statue and there's a plaque there, not just like a plaque going like he was a great guy and a great hero. It writes out exactly what happened. It's not like sanitized. It literally says, if you pause it and look, this happened to him against his will without his consent. And Carl Lumbly's performance in that scene, you know, it was really tear-jerking. That made the finale for me. Like, it got me crying. Like, after WandaVision's finale, I was like, there's no way that Falcon and the Winter Soldier will have something that'll have me, like, really crying, and that was it. Like, it was a really emotional scene that I thought they worked in really well. I really liked Isaiah Bradley's addition here. I really like Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson overall. I think his character is great. Thankfully, he comes into his own in this show, which is obviously great. For the longest time, it's like, yeah, it's really cool that he's friends with Cap. He's got a good relationship with them. I understand why that friendship is important, but now they're actually like fleshing out the character a bit more. You see the rest of his family. You understand that he doesn't get paid for being an Avenger, which is really weird, but how that kind of affects his life. You also get to see his frustration when he sees John Walker as Captain America, and you also get to see like a good contrast between like John Walker's kind of like, he can't handle it, obviously. He's the kind of guy who is like, it's a huge honor to be Captain America. He's got a lot of pressure to be like Steve Rogers level, and he just kind of crumbles. Whereas Sam Wilson actually, it feels like without even really trying, he really embodies a lot of Steve Rogers' morals. So this whole time when you're watching Sam Wilson go through this stuff, it gets to the finale, he puts on the costume and it looks terrific. That shot of him smashing through the window with the shield hitting the dude and him catching it and landing, it's fantastic. It gave me like the biggest smile ear to ear. It was so good. The costume looks great, and he is great as that role of Captain America. They do a lot of great stuff with the action, by the way, like a lot of cool stuff with his wings. Like, I feel like I'm just kind of noticing it now because there's a lot more of it, like blocking bullets and also putting them into the ground, so someone tries to shove him, he's like, nope, I'm still here. And like him flying eventually in the finale with the shield too. Like, I felt like they were really embracing like how cool it is and how you can do some cool stuff in the action scenes with a guy who can fly around with these wings and also has the Captain America shield. I thought they did a really great job with the action in this. Kari Skogland directed all 6 episodes, and they're all well directed, including the action sequences. The series opens with a scene of Falcon flying around and beating up Batroc the Leaper and saving some people. And it's intense. It's like, I can't believe I'm watching a TV show because this might as well be a movie. It's got movie grade cinematography here. It's really intense. It's got all the money in the world, maybe more money than any TV show has ever gotten. It's incredible. So I was entertained on that level. I really dug the social issues that they were working into the show, but a lot of this rides on the chemistry between Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, and that really delivers too. I think they had a really great frenemy kind of relationship going for a bit, but once episode 5 hits and they really actually become friends, that might be my favorite episode 5, because it opens with this intense fight between him, John Walker, and Bucky, and it's really primal, mostly from John Walker's part, so it's like, oh, like you're really clenched up and feeling that sense of suspense, like I legitimately don't know what's about to happen to any of these guys. But then after that, it gets a little bit more quiet and meditative, and these characters actually kind of grow to actually become friends instead of just, hey, we're working together, but I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of you. That for me kind of made the show. Sebastian Stan also does a really great job as the character. They explore a little bit of his PTSD, his regrets for the stuff that he did as the Winter Soldier that he had no control over, but you know, there's still people he feels like he has to make amends to. I think overall what this show needed to achieve was having these two characters grow the way they did, have them interact the way they did, whilst having some entertaining action sequences, an intriguing plot, and that ultimately makes the show. So I think overall, these core things, these two actors working off each other, Malcolm Spellman's storytelling, Kari Skogland's direction, it worked out at the end. I overall really did like this show. Oh, and Henry Jackman's score is great. It's good to see him come back to the MCU in this form. I think he had some really great orchestrations here to work with. I think he did a really great job. I do have some other things that I like about this, but this is where I'm going to start to segue into some stuff I didn't really care for in this show, but I just wanted to get that out of the way really quick, that overall, I do like this. It has a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed seeing in an MCU project, but it does have some things that kind of like I think they could have improved on. There's a couple smaller things, like some edits they do and like some choice a choice actor that they get for not the entire series, like one episode, 2 minutes tops, but like it's just smaller stuff that really doesn't matter, but it's stuff that stood out to me, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But something I was really excited for going into this was Baron Zemo coming back. I really like Daniel Bruhl as this character in Civil War. It was very grounded and very real. For the longest time, you're like, this guy is intense. He's kind of dark and scary. Don't know what he's going to do next. He's doing all this stuff. He's like a soldier. He works with like special forces, but he's doing all this stuff messing with the Avengers. What's his goal here? You know, what's he trying to achieve? And then the end of the movie comes and he kind of spills it to Black Panther, and it's like, oh, and it fits into the theme of the movie, the conflicts with Iron Man and Captain America. It's like, oh, it's perfect. This is a great MCU movie. This is a great villain. So I was really excited to see him come back. Like, what's he cooking up? What's going on? He's going to be wearing the mask, so maybe they'll embrace a little bit more of like his comic book character traits, but also maintain what made him so special in Civil War. And I think overall I enjoyed his presence because he's Daniel Bruhl, and Daniel Bruhl made it work. He's got that, you know, great dance that they released like a full version of on YouTube, which is fun. But I can't help but feel like the decision for Bucky to break him out of prison to help them was maybe a little too rushed and wasn't really convincing when he was like, you need me. Like, I couldn't help but feel like they should have spent a little bit more time really hammering in like, we have no other option, you know. It felt like, you know, you might have another option. I don't know. It seems like you haven't really thought about it. I'm not sure. It was just such a quick thing. And then by the end of it, when it's time for his story arc to wrap up, it's kind of like, I understand what you're doing here, how it's important to Bucky, and also you're transferring from one location to the next. But overall, you could have swapped him out with any other criminal kind of character, and it might not have... It probably wouldn't have mattered. And as much as it's good to see him, it's like I was kind of hoping for a little bit more since you're bringing this character back. And, you know, it was nice to see him, but it could have been anyone, so that kind of makes it a little disappointing. The Flag Smashers, I think, are an interesting antagonistic force because you have Carly Morgenthau, who the actress does a good job playing, but also she's someone who, you know, is for this cause that a lot of people are kind of behind. It's like a good humanitarian kind of thing. But, you know, of course, she gets radicalized, she gets desperate because no one's listening and no one's helping. And I think that's a good character. I think that's a good theme for the rest of the show, especially how it wraps up. Sam Wilson gives that big speech in reaction to her death. I think it's really great stuff. But I think my main thing is just kind of buying into her making these impulsive, more drastic kind of actions. It's something that Avengers Endgame didn't do the best either at, and it's really just because of their motivation. Avengers Endgame, they show you, like, in the 5 years, here's, you know, briefly what's kind of happening with our heroes. Steve Rogers is doing some therapy for, like, 5 people, and Ant-Man's walking around, and it looks like people are kind of mourning, and some... leaves and vines are growing over here in this suburban neighborhood, but other than that, the world is kept kind of contained, and you don't really see a lot of like the impacts. Captain Marvel says something like, "What's happening on Earth is happening to other planets. It's a little weird," and you're like, "What kind of stuff?" And the movie never tells you. So when this show kicks off, and they're like, you know, the Flag Smashers really like things the way it was in those 5 years with, you know, open borders, and you could go anywhere, everyone helped each other. But now everyone's back and everything's a mess, and I like that idea, but I had a hard time buying into the motivation for a lot of it, you know, because you don't really see a lot of what made it so good. You're just kind of told it was good, and it's like, oh, is that all we're gonna get out of this? And at one point, she even has a mom who dies of a disease, and it's like, that's kind of sad. But I mean, I don't know. It was kind of hard to get into a lot of like the reason why she was doing the things she was doing. I heard a rumor that because this show had a cut plot line that tied into a pandemic, and because of COVID, they were like, cut it out of the show. It's a whole video. If you can find it, please watch it. It's very interesting. If that's the case, I think it honestly does make sense, because the way the video kind of described how it would have affected the plot if it was put in, it's like, yeah, that probably would have given us more of a reason to care about the current situation of things, more than just relying on stuff that Endgame didn't really do well. But I know Malcolm Spellman recently came out and said there was nothing cut that had to do with a COVID or a pandemic related thing. There is a cut thing, but it had nothing to do with a pandemic. Then, you know, I don't know. But there just needed to be a bit more for me to completely buy into them, and I just kind of couldn't. As much as I like the character of Carly, it's a lot of her going like, you know, just kind of calmly explaining things to you, and this is what we're doing, you know. And after a while, it's like, I want more of a reason to care. I like this character. I like the idea of this group, but fully immerse me, please. And then there's Sharon Carter, Agent 13 from Winter Soldier and Civil War. After Civil War, it was kind of up in the air as far as like, where is she? She's not in Infinity War, she's not in Endgame. What's she doing? What's been going on? So when she was coming back, I was like, that's exciting. I really like the potential of her character in those other 2 movies, so let's see her finally get a chance to shine, maybe do something really great with her. And they do something interesting with her for sure, but I had a hard time buying into it because it was something that was just so abrupt. Like, it's a very quick introduction when she comes back into the show of her going like, this is what I've been doing in this other country because America did not pardon me for what I did in Civil War, so I've just kind of been out here. She helps them out, and then the episode ends. And then by the time the finale comes, it seems like she's back to help them. And then she reveals herself as the main villain, which is the Power Broker. The Power Broker is the one that's kind of been supplying the Super Soldier Serum to the Flag Smashers. And it's like, she starts to have like villainous dialogue too. And it's like, what a contrast between like the Sharon Carter we saw in Winter Soldier and Civil War to now this. And I can say, like, if this was like some other character, it might be really interesting. But considering the contrast between the movies and this, it felt so quick, and I really needed a bit more time to mull over why she took this turn, because it's not really the action itself of her being the power broker, it's the dialogue she has to accompany her too, because it is very on the nose kind of villainous what she says. Like, you know, when I saw you, Carly, you reminded me of a young version of me. It's like, that's very on the nose villainous, and I need a bit more time to really buy into this like full-blown new Sharon that we have, and it didn't really feel right. I'm excited by the potential of it, and honestly thinking about it, it's like that makes sense, but I need a bit more time. This is a 6-episode show, and I feel like they could have stretched those episode runtimes out a bit more, or just have another episode and everything would have been fine. But that's about it as far as issues go. Overall, I did really like this show. There's one thing I have not mentioned yet, and it's because a lot of people have been complaining about the way they treated this character, and I am not really so sure how to feel about it yet, and that's Wyatt Russell as John Walker. In those like first 5 episodes, he's great. I really liked it. Like, he's a man who, he's trying his best, but he's crumbling under the pressure. He's just really not ready for it, or maybe he was never meant to be this Captain America role, you know? He succumbs to his anger and frustration way too easily, and when Lamar dies, his buddy, you know, he fucking caves that guy's stomach in. So seeing this soldier who has all the best intentions in the world go crazy because of like this immense pressure he feels for being this iconic figure, you know, that was really great. I think it speaks volumes, especially for the themes of the show. Like, this important American figure is now having its costume worn by a problematic kind of guy who does not really embody the values of Captain America at all. In the finale, not only is he courted by Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing Contessa, which, what a surprise, if I'm going to be honest. That really shocked me. I did not know she was going to be in this. So it was really great to see her. I can't wait to see more of her. Not only is she courting him into being the U.S. agent and doing some, you know, on the side shady stuff, but also he comes in to fight Carly one last time with like a made-at-home shield. And at one point, he saves a truck of people over running after Carly and beating the fuck out of her. And a lot of people viewed that as like a redemption arc, because he's even hanging around Bucky later on, acting like a hero, like, yeah, I'm helping. And I don't really see that as like a complete redemption arc, you know what I mean? I understand some people looking at that and going like, I really wanted a more just like unhinged American white guy just running rampant, and him being kind of like the main villain, because the Flag Smashers gained sympathy because of their cause, but they're just, you know, they're radicalized, so they're the villains, and a lot of people wanted the villain to be John Walker specifically, because he's like, he represents like the worst of America. And I can buy that for sure. But honestly, I didn't look at it as a redemption arc, him saving the truck of people, because I feel like if that truck wasn't there, he still would have run after Carly and probably caved her stomach in, not with the shield, of course, like with something else nearby. He probably would have killed her, probably. I don't think that part of him is resolved. I don't think he's redeemed for any of his actions, or any of the actions he's about to take as U.S. agent, because Wyatt Russell even said in an interview, like, he has come into his own in a very dangerous way. I know they have more plans for this character, and I think even the comics, it's kind of like kind of mixed as far as like, well, he is an Avenger technically, like he is kind of a hero, he just does like some shady stuff. I'm not really familiar with the character from the comics, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're starting to pave the way for a very interesting character with him. So I'm fine with them not making him the full-on villain. I'm fine with the approach they took here. But if later projects come out and he's like completely redeemed, then come back to this review and disregard what I'm saying. But just right now, I'm looking at it as there's still interesting storytelling to do with him. I don't think he's done yet, you know what I mean? So I don't see it as redeemed. I think there's interesting stuff going on. I think his presence worked overall. Wyatt Russell is incredible in this show. So overall, I really liked it. I think it does have its issues. I think expanding the episode runtime maybe could have helped flesh things out a bit better and make for an all-around, more well-rounded show. But overall, I was very entertained by the action sequences. I liked the 2 core characters. A lot of the story I found really intriguing and really interesting. I liked the finale a lot. Episode 5 is probably my favorite, though, because that's the most character-driven one, and that's ultimately a lot of the reason why I really enjoyed the show, is because of the character work. Marvel obviously does a great job with a lot of their characters, so this obviously shining once again. Perfect. That makes the show. I'm gonna give The Falcon and the Winter Soldier a B. I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited for Captain America 4 with Malcolm Spellman coming back to kind of head that story as well. Maybe Bucky Barnes too, so it'd be great to see them post this show, because the character work on them was just so good. Overall, really great stuff, even if they could have tweaked some things to make it better. But even those things I still kind of enjoyed, even if it was a little basic. But if you've seen this show, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.